A horse, scarred by abuse and neglect, crosses paths with a man lost in his own guilt. What begins as an unexpected rescue reveals secrets that could change everything. The rain lashed against the office windows as Alexander gazed into the darkness outside. The wind howled through the ancient trees surrounding his newly acquired estate in Aspen, casting dancing shadows that flickered across the walls. Seated in his leather armchair, he contemplated the stack of documents on the mahogany desk, silent witnesses to a life dedicated to business. At 45, Alexander bore the marks of someone who had achieved everything early, but had lost something essential along the way. His brown eyes, once sparkling with ambition, now reflected a weariness no amount of money could cure. The decision to buy that isolated property had been more than an investment. It was a desperate attempt to find new meaning in his existence. The clock read 11:47 p.m. when a different sound cut through the storm's noise. At first, Alexander tried to ignore it, convincing himself it was just another quirk of the tempest. But there was something unsettling about that sound, a sharp metallic wail that didn't belong to the natural symphony of the rainy night. Restless, he stood and walked to the window, squinting to see beyond the curtain of falling water. The sound grew clearer, a mix of distressed whinnying and the grinding of metal. His rational mind urged him to stay in the comfort and safety of the office, but something deeper compelled him to investigate. Donning a heavy coat and grabbing a powerful flashlight, Alexander stepped out into the stormy night. The icy rain soaked his face as he followed the sound, which led him toward the old train tracks that cut through his property. His steps were hindered by the mud forming on the path, but he pressed on, driven by an urgency he couldn't explain. As he neared the tracks, Alexander's heart raced. The flashlight's beam danced among the raindrops, revealing fragments of the nighttime landscape. Then, the light found the source of the sounds. A horse was trapped between the tracks, thrashing. In panic. The animal, with its dark coat and majestic stature even in such a dire situation, had one of its hind legs firmly stuck. Alexander felt his stomach churn. Years of cold, calculated decisions in the corporate world hadn't prepared him for this moment. The horse stared at him with wide, fearful eyes, its flared nostrils exhaling steam into the cold night air. The situation demanded immediate action, but the complexity of the rescue made him hesitate for a crucial moment. A distant noise, different from the previous ones, made his blood run cold. The unmistakable sound of an approaching train echoed through the night, mingling with the desperate whinnies of the animal. Alexander no longer had time to think or plan. Acting on pure instinct, he approached the horse, ignoring the risk of being struck by its frantic movements. The rain continued to fall mercilessly as he examined the trapped hoof. The metal had clamped around it in a way that seemed too deliberate to be accidental. Using all his strength, Alexander tried to free the animal, feeling his muscles protest against the effort. The sound of the train grew louder with each passing second, and the horse's panic increased in proportion. With one last, superhuman effort, Alexander managed to loosen the trap enough for the animal to break free. The train rushed past them seconds later, its powerful lights turning the night into day for a brief moment, before plunging everything back into darkness. The horse, though free, did not flee. It remained there, trembling, its eyes fixed on Alexander, as if it understood that this stranger had saved its life. Exhausted and soaked to the bone, Alexander examined the animal more carefully. In the light of the lantern, he noticed disturbing marks on its body. Old and fresh scars covered its coat, telling a silent story of mistreatment. Even more intriguing was a peculiar mark on one of its hooves, resembling rope burns, suggesting that the animal had been deliberately tied before being abandoned on the tracks. If this story intrigued you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit like, and let us know which city you're watching from. We'll continue. The dawn brought with it a clear sky, as if the storm from the previous night had been nothing more than a distant nightmare. Alexander, after a restless night, made his way to the stable where he had sheltered the rescued horse. The animal, now calmer, watched him with a mix of caution and curiosity. In the natural light, the marks on its body were even more evident and disturbing. "You're a warrior," Alexander murmured, slowly approaching. The horse, a striking chestnut with an impressive build, remained still, allowing him to come closer. It was as if, after the dramatic rescue, a silent connection had formed between the two. "I'll call you Braveheart," he decided, reaching out to gently touch the animal's neck. While waiting for the arrival of the veterinarian he had urgently called, Alexander decided to return to the rescue site. The daylight revealed details that the darkness had concealed. Near the tracks, he found pieces of rope and, even more disturbing, a folded piece of paper attached to a nearby fence. With slightly trembling hands, he unfolded the paper and read the message that made his stomach churn. "This is your fault." The arrival of Dr. Paul, an experienced local veterinarian, interrupted his thoughts. The professional examined Braveheart thoroughly, his expression growing more serious with each discovery. "This horse has endured a lot of suffering," he declared, pointing to the various scars. "But there's something more interesting here." With a device in hand, he scanned the animal's neck. "As I suspected, he has a microchip." The discovery of the microchip opened a new dimension to the mystery. Dr. Paul managed to extract the information. Braveheart was originally from a renowned stables in the area, specialized in competition horses. "Horizon Stables," the veterinarian read. "Do you know it?" Alexander felt his blood run cold. He knew Horizon Stables very well, or rather, he knew its owner, Diego Martinez. Years ago, the two had been partners in a venture that ended in a bitter fallout due to Diego's questionable practices. The coincidence was too unsettling to ignore. "I need to investigate this personally," Alexander decided, after the veterinarian left, promising to return the next day to continue the treatment. Dressing in appropriate attire for a formal visit, he drove his car along the winding road leading to Horizon Stables, his mind replaying the possible scenarios of the confrontation that lay ahead. Horizon Stables was an impressive property, with modern facilities and a privileged view of the mountains. However, something about the atmosphere made Alexander uneasy. The staff seemed tense, avoiding eye contact, and some of the horses visible in the paddock showed signs of neglect that a closer look could reveal. Diego Martinez greeted him in his office with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. The years had been kind to his appearance, but there was something predatory in his gaze that Alexander didn't remember noticing before. "What a pleasant surprise," Diego said, gesturing to a chair. "I didn't know you had moved to the area." "I recently purchased a property," Alexander replied, studying the reactions of his former partner. "Actually, I came for a specific reason. I found a horse with your stable's microchip in a rather peculiar situation." The shift in Diego's expression was subtle but noticeable. "Interesting," he replied, his tone too casual to be sincere. "We've sold and transferred many animals over the years. Without more details, it's hard to be of help." Alexander decided to press further. The horse was trapped on the tracks during a storm with clear signs of abuse. His eyes didn't leave Diego's face. "Someone put it there deliberately." "What a terrible story," Diego commented, standing up to pour himself a glass of water. "But you're not suggesting we had anything to do with it, are you? We're a respected stable, Alexander. Accusations like that can be damaging." The veiled threat did not go unnoticed. Alexander remained steadfast, watching as Diego drank his water with studied calm. "I'm not accusing anyone," he replied. "I'm just seeking answers." Upon returning from Horizon Stables, Alexander found his farm in a disturbing state. The fence of the main pasture had been cut in several places, and several essential tools had disappeared from the barn. The message was clear. Someone wanted to intimidate him. His foreman Joseph awaited him with a worried expression. "Boss, something strange happened while you were away," said Joseph, leading Alexander to the stable where Braveheart was housed. "A man showed up here claiming to be a city inspector. He wanted to see the property documents and inspect the animals." Alexander frowned. "And you allowed it?" "No, sir. I asked for his official documentation, and when I insisted, he left. But before leaving, he spent a good amount of time observing Braveheart." Joseph paused significantly. "And there's something else. I heard some comments in town. They're spreading rumors about you." The rumors, as Alexander would discover in the following days, were calculated to tarnish his reputation. Stories about alleged dubious practices in his previous businesses began to circulate among the local residents. Some neighboring farmers, who had previously treated him cordially, now avoided contact with him. During this period, Alexander devoted a significant portion of his time to Braveheart. The horse responded surprisingly well to care, displaying an intelligence and sensitivity that contradicted its traumatic past. Under the guidance of Dr. Paul, who made regular visits, the animal gradually regained its strength and confidence. It was during one of these visits that the veterinarian brought up intriguing information. "I've been researching Horizon Stables," he commented, while examining Braveheart's healing wounds. "Over the past 2 years, several competition horses have mysteriously disappeared from there. The official explanation is that they were sold to international buyers, but something doesn't sit right with me." The conversation was interrupted by a call on Alexander's cell phone. It was from his former company, the one he had left behind when he moved to Aspen. One of his former directors, with whom he still kept in touch, had troubling news. "Alexander, you need to know something. One of our subsidiaries supplies special materials to Horizon Stables. I found out they're using these products improperly on competition horses." Alexander's heart raced. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to come together. His former company, even indirectly, was contributing to questionable practices. The guilt mentioned in the cryptic note took on a new meaning. That night, as he organized his findings in his office, Alexander heard a noise coming from the stable. When he arrived, he found the door broken open. Braveheart was agitated but unharmed. On one of the stalls, another note had been left. "Last chance, stop investigating." The threat, instead of intimidating him, only strengthened his resolve. Alexander began installing security cameras throughout the property and hired night watchmen. He also decided to document everything he discovered, creating a detailed file about his investigations. One morning, while overseeing the installation of the cameras, Alexander received an unexpected visitor. A young woman who introduced herself as Anna Claire was waiting for him at the main gate. Her expression was serious and determined. "I know what's happening with the horses at Horizon Stables," she said bluntly. "I'm an animal rights activist and have been investigating Diego for months. We need to talk." Anna Claire carried a folder full of documents and photographs. Her arrival would mark a turning point in Alexander's investigation, uncovering even darker secrets about the world of elite equestrian competitions. Anna Claire was no ordinary activist, a graduate in veterinary medicine and an expert in equine behavior. She had dedicated the last 2 years to investigating cases of abuse in competition stables. Sitting in Alexander's office, she began to lay out her findings with a methodical precision that revealed her scientific background. "Horizon Stables is just the tip of the iceberg," she explained, spreading photographs across the table. "Diego has created a sophisticated scheme. Horses that don't meet expected performance standards in competitions simply disappear. Officially, they're sold to foreign buyers, but the reality is quite different. The photographs showed horses in various states of suffering, some with the same marks that Braveheart had displayed. Anna Claire had obtained these images through disgruntled employees of the stables who could no longer bear to participate in such cruel practices." "But why abandon Braveheart specifically on the tracks of my property?" Alexander questioned as he examined the documents. "And that note saying it was my fault?" Anna Claire adjusted her discreetly framed glasses before responding. "I discovered that your former company supplies a specific type of supplement to the stables, a product that, when used in doses higher than recommended, can temporarily enhance the performance of horses in competitions." Alexander felt a weight in his stomach. "The special supplies," he murmured, recalling the call from his former director. "They're using my company's products to dope the horses." "Exactly," confirmed Anna Claire. "And when the animals start showing health issues due to prolonged use of these substances, they're discarded." Braveheart was one of the most promising horses at the stables until he started showing severe side effects. The conversation was interrupted by Joseph, who hurriedly entered the office. "Boss, there's something strange happening on the main road. Several suspicious cars are parked near the farm's entrance." Alexander and Anna Claire cautiously approached the window. 3 dark vehicles were strategically parked, partially blocking access to the property. Through the binoculars, Alexander recognized one of the men. It was the same one who had introduced himself as a city inspector days before. "They must have followed me," said Anna Claire, her voice tense. "This isn't the first time Diego has tried to intimidate me. Last week they broke into my office and took my computer." Alexander made a quick decision. "Joseph, take Anna Claire through the back road. I'll distract these men." Before they could protest, he was already walking toward his car. The next few minutes were filled with extreme tension. While Alexander deliberately headed for the main entrance, drawing the attention of the suspicious vehicles, Joseph led Anna Claire through an alternate path across the fields. The plan worked, but it made it clear that the situation had escalated to a dangerous level. That night, after ensuring Anna Claire had arrived safely in town, Alexander reviewed his options. The evidence she had brought was compelling, but they needed more proof to expose the entire scheme. That's when he received an anonymous message on his phone, a video showing the exact moment Braveheart was abandoned on the tracks. The video, though dark and shaky, clearly revealed two men dragging the frightened horse. The way they acted indicated they were professionals, accustomed to that kind of task. Even more disturbing was the visible symbol on their uniforms, the same logo used by Horizon Stables employees. Alexander immediately shared the video with Anna Claire, who responded with an even more shocking revelation. She had identified a pattern in the disappearances of the horses. All of them coincided with major competitions where large bets were placed. The cruelty toward the animals was only part of a much larger scheme. As the night wore on, Alexander realized he had reached a point of no return. His choices now wouldn't just affect his life, but the fate of dozens of innocent animals. In the stable, Braveheart watched him with his deep eyes, as if understanding the weight of the decisions that lay ahead. The morning brought disturbing news. Dr. Paul's veterinary office had been broken into during the night. The files on Braveheart and other horses from Horizon Stables had disappeared. The veterinarian, visibly shaken, called Alexander as soon as he discovered what had happened. "They took everything, Alexander. All the records, exams, and documentation that proved the mistreatment," explained Dr. Paul, his voice trembling with indignation. "But they don't know I keep digital backups of all the reports on a secure server." Alexander immediately called an emergency meeting with Anna Claire in a discreet location, a cafe in the neighboring town. The activist arrived with equally troubling news. "They're trying to discredit our work," she said, showing recent publications in local newspapers. "Diego is spreading stories about how you're using Braveheart's case for personal revenge." The articles, clearly manipulated, portrayed Alexander as a bitter former businessman who had moved to the area with the sole purpose of harming Horizon Stables. His reputation, built over years, was being systematically destroyed. "We need to act fast," stated Anna Claire, her eyes shining with determination. "I have contacts in a national animal protection network. They can help us organize an operation to rescue other horses at risk." The operation was meticulously planned over the following days. Alexander used his business expertise to create a structure that could receive and care for the rescued animals. He converted part of his farm into a sanctuary, hiring specialists in rehabilitating traumatized horses. Braveheart, now fully recovered, had become an inspiration. His transformation was evident not only in his physical health, but especially in his behavior. The horse that once trembled at the sight of humans now accompanied Alexander on his rounds around the property, showing impressive loyalty. Braveheart's presence also provoked intense reactions among the farm's visitors. Independent journalists, activists, and even former employees of Horizon Stables began seeking out Alexander, bringing more information about Diego's scheme. One former caretaker in particular revealed shocking details about the stable's practices. "They have a system," explained the woman, who preferred to remain anonymous. "When a horse starts showing signs of exhaustion from the overuse of substances, it's marked with a special code. Then it disappears overnight. Braveheart was just one of many." As the evidence piled up, Alexander and Anna Claire prepared for the rescue operation. The chosen date would coincide with a major equestrian event in the area, when the stable's security would be focused elsewhere. However, on the eve of the operation, Alexander received an unexpected visit. Lauren, his former assistant at the company, showed up at his farm with a serious expression. "I came to warn you," she said after making sure no one was around. "Diego is planning something big. He found out about the rescue operation." Lauren's revelation included disturbing details. Diego had hired people to intercept the rescue team. More than that, he planned to use the incident to frame Alexander and Anna Claire, preparing false evidence that would link them to illegal activities. "How did you find all this out?" Alexander asked, intrigued by the perfect timing of the warning. "I'm still working at the company in the department that supplies the stables," Lauren explained. "I overheard a conversation between Diego and some executives. They're in deep with this scheme. The horse doping is just part of the business. There's illegal betting, money laundering, all documented in files they keep in a safe at the main office of Horizon Stables." Lauren's information completely changed the landscape. The rescue operation would need to be rethought, but now they had a new objective: the documents in the safe. If they could access them, they would have enough evidence to expose the entire scheme. With the new information provided by Lauren, Alexander and Anna Claire had to rethink their entire strategy. The activist called an emergency meeting in a secure location, bringing only the most trusted members of her animal protection network. "We can't risk anyone's life," Alexander emphasized, looking at the gathered group. "But we also can't let them continue to mistreat the animals. We need to be smarter than them." Anna Claire had brought detailed blueprints of Horizon Stables, obtained through a former employee of the architecture department who had designed the most recent renovations. "The safe is in this office," she pointed to one of the drawings. "During the equestrian event, most of the staff will be busy at the main facilities here. It's our best chance." The team worked tirelessly in the following days, developing a plan that would allow both the rescue of the animals and access to the incriminating documents. Lauren, still working at the company, continued to provide valuable information about Diego and his associates' movements. Meanwhile, Alexander faced a parallel battle. Diego had intensified his smear campaign, now using influential media outlets. In a particularly malicious interview, he insinuated that Alexander had been mentally unstable since leaving the corporate world. "He turned his farm into a refuge for problematic horses," Diego declared to the local newspaper, his falsely concerned smile captured in a front-page photo. "I fear his obsession is not only risking his reputation, but also the well-being of the animals he claims to want to protect." The interview had an unexpected effect. Several horse owners in the region who had lost their animals under mysterious circumstances began seeking out Alexander. Each shared story revealed a similar pattern: healthy horses that, after displaying strange behaviors in competitions, simply vanished. One of these visits brought a crucial revelation. Mary Ellen, a professional equestrian, recognized Braveheart immediately. "This horse, he belonged to my father," she said, emotional upon seeing the animal. "He disappeared 2 years ago, right after winning an important competition. Diego convinced us to keep him at the stables for specialized training, but later said he had been sold abroad." Mary Ellen's story provided something Alexander and Anna Claire didn't yet have: a legitimate owner willing to testify. More than that, she had original documents proving Braveheart's ownership, including pedigree records and competition history. "My father never believed the sale story," Mary Ellen continued. "He tried to investigate but fell ill soon after. I always suspected something was wrong, especially when I found out that other horses had also disappeared in the same way." The proximity of the equestrian event brought a growing atmosphere of tension to the region. Diego frequently appeared in the media, promoting what he called the biggest equestrian competition of the year. Behind the scenes, however, his men kept constant surveillance over Alexander's farm. On a particularly tense night, Alexander found Braveheart restless in his stable. The horse, usually calm, seemed to sense the approach of something significant. As he approached the animal, Alexander realized that his own transformation over those months had been as profound as the horse's. "We'll make it, buddy," he murmured, stroking Braveheart's neck. "It's not just for you anymore, it's for all of them." The eve of the operation arrived with an alarming discovery. Lauren sent an urgent message. Diego had hired a private security firm to reinforce the protection of the stables during the event. The plan would need to be adjusted once again, and time was running out. The day of the event dawned with an electric energy in the air. Horizon Stables had been transformed into a spectacle of luxury and opulence. Colorful flags fluttered in the wind, while imported cars began to arrive, bringing the elite of the national equestrian scene. Alexander watched everything from a distance through binoculars, from a strategic point on his property. "The security guards are positioned exactly where Lauren said they would be," commented Anna Claire, who was by his side consulting the site plans. "But there are more men than expected. Diego really isn't skimping on security." The operation had been meticulously planned over the past week. The rescue team, made up of veterinarians, experienced activists, and former stable employees, was divided into 3 groups. Each had a specific and crucial role in the success of the plan. Mary Ellen, the equestrian who had recognized Braveheart, also played a crucial role. She had entered the competition, ensuring legitimate access to the stable's facilities. Her goal was to distract Diego and his main henchmen during critical moments of the event. "Remember," Alexander warned during the final team meeting, "our priority is the safety of the animals and obtaining the documents. We cannot give Diego any chance to accuse us of illegal actions." The plan began to unfold as the event reached its busiest moment. Mary Ellen, riding one of her award-winning horses, delivered an impressive performance on the main track. Her display kept all eyes on her, especially Diego's, who couldn't afford to ignore one of the most prominent equestrians in the circuit. Meanwhile, the first rescue team, led by Anna Claire, discreetly infiltrated the more remote stables, where, according to Lauren's intel, the horses showing signs of exhaustion from the excessive use of banned substances were kept. What they found there confirmed their worst suspicions. Several horses bore the same types of marks that had been found on Braveheart. Some could barely stand, clearly suffering from years of mistreatment and the effects of harmful substances. "My God," whispered one of the team's veterinarians, carefully documenting each case with his camera. "This is much worse than we imagined." Alexander, coordinating everything through discreet communicators, received constant updates from each group. The second team, composed of technology experts, worked to neutralize the security system protecting the main office, where the safe containing the incriminating documents was located. Lauren had provided crucial information about the security routines, but even so, every move had to be perfectly synchronized. A single mistake could jeopardize the entire operation and endanger not only the plan, but also the lives of the animals they were trying to save. The tension peaked when one of the guards began approaching the area where the second team was working. It was at that moment that Mary Ellen executed her most impressive maneuver, drawing enthusiastic applause from the audience, and, more importantly, keeping all attention focused on the main track. However, not everything was going according to plan. One of the rescued horses, particularly frightened, began neighing agitatedly, threatening to draw attention to the rescue operation. It took all the knowledge and experience of the veterinarians to calm the animal without using sedatives, which could later be used as evidence against them. Alexander, watching everything unfold, felt his heart pounding in his chest. Each minute seemed to drag on endlessly as he alternated his attention between different points of the operation. At his ranch, a support structure was ready to receive the rescued animals, with a full medical team prepared for the most severe cases. The situation took on even more dramatic contours when one of Anna Claire's informants, still working at the stables, sent an urgent message. Diego had scheduled a cleanup for that very night. Several horses deemed problematic would be removed from the facilities and disposed of, following the same cruel fate that had nearly claimed Braveheart. As the operation unfolded at Horizon Stables, an unexpected discovery completely changed the course of events. The third group, responsible for accessing the safe in the main office, found much more than documents about the horse doping scheme. "Alexander, you need to see this." Lauren's voice sounded tense over the communicator. She had managed to infiltrate the team monitoring the security cameras, leveraging her contacts within the company. There are records of bank transfers, contracts with international betting houses. The scheme is much bigger than we imagined. The documents revealed a complex network of result manipulation in equestrian competitions. Diego not only doped his own horses, but also systematically sabotaged animals belonging to other owners, ensuring astronomical profits from prearranged bets. Mary Ellen, still maintaining her performance on the main track, managed to disguise her tension while observing suspicious movements. Through her discreet communication point, she warned, "Diego is restless. Something is wrong. He's checked his phone several times and whispered with his men." Mary Ellen's suspicion was confirmed minutes later. One of the guards had noticed strange activities near the more remote stables. The plan needed to be accelerated. Anna Claire and her team began mobilizing the horses that had already been identified as victims of mistreatment. Alexander, realizing that time was running out, made a risky decision. Leaving his observation post, he headed personally to the stables. His arrival caused exactly the distraction the team needed. Diego, upon seeing him entering the event as a regular guest, couldn't help but confront him. "What an unpleasant surprise," said Diego, approaching with his artificial smile. "I don't recall seeing your name on the guest list." "Appearances can be deceiving, isn't that right, Diego?" replied Alexander, staying calm. "Just like your reports on horse sales abroad." Diego's smile faltered for a moment. "What's your insinuations, Alexander? You're playing with fire." The tension between the two men drew the attention of several guests, inadvertently creating the perfect cover for the activities happening at the back of the property. Anna Claire and her team worked quickly, documenting every case of mistreatment and preparing the most debilitated animals for transport. It was at that moment that one of the rescued horses, passing near the event area, recognized its former owner in the crowd. The animal let out a loud whinny, catching everyone's attention. The man, a respected businessman in the equestrian world, turned pale as he recognized his horse, which had supposedly been sold to Dubai months earlier. The ensuing chaos was intense. Diego tried to maintain control of the situation, but the evidence was impossible to ignore. Other owners present began to recognize their animals among those being rescued, horses that were supposed to be in other countries. Lauren, taking advantage of the chaos, managed to make digital copies of all the documents found in the safe. The evidence was irrefutable: fraudulent contracts, records of banned substances, receipts for illicit payments. But Diego still had one last card to play. Amid the confusion, he managed to access his phone and make a quick call. Minutes later, police vehicles began arriving at Horizon's stables. Alexander felt his heart freeze, fearing that the entire plan was about to crumble. What no one expected was that Mary Ellen also had her own connections. As a respected figure in the equestrian world, she had previously alerted federal authorities about suspicions of fraud in the competitions. When the vehicles arrived, it wasn't the local police that Diego had called, but rather federal agents who had been investigating the scheme for months. The situation quickly spiraled out of Diego's control. As the agents began collecting testimonies and evidence, more owners recognized their horses among the rescued animals. The carefully constructed facade of Horizon Stables began to crumble, revealing the true nature of the operations taking place there. The chaos that erupted at Horizon Stables following the arrival of the federal agents was just the beginning of a series of revelations that would shake the world of American equestrianism. The morning after the event, dozens of journalists crowded at the property gates, eager for information about the unfolding scandal. Alexander, exhausted after the intense operation, was at his farm, coordinating the care of the rescued animals. The structure he had prepared was crucial in ensuring the well-being of the horses. Veterinarians worked tirelessly, documenting each case and starting the necessary treatments. "I've never seen anything like this in my entire career," commented Dr. Paul, examining one of the rescued horses. "The level of neglect and abuse is shocking. Some of these animals will need months of rehabilitation." Anna Claire, who had barely slept, was organizing extensive documentation with the help of Lauren. The files found in Diego's safe revealed a network of corruption that extended far beyond Horizon Stables. Prominent figures in the equestrian world were implicated in the betting and result manipulation scheme. "We need to be very careful with this information," Lauren warned, sorting through the most sensitive documents. "Some of these people are extremely powerful and will do anything to avoid a scandal." Lauren's concern was not unfounded. Throughout the day, several lawyers arrived at the stables, representing different parties involved in the case. Some offered silence agreements, others made veiled threats. Diego, who had been detained for questioning, was already preparing his defense through a team of renowned lawyers. Mary Ellen, who had played a crucial role in the plan, was facing her own battles. Some competitors, fearing they might be implicated in the scandal, began to question her integrity and suggested that she should be banned from competitions for having conspired against the stables. "I regret nothing," she declared firmly during a meeting with Alexander and Anna Claire. "I spent years watching these abuses happen and feeling powerless. Now finally, we can do something about it." The story of Braveheart in particular began to gain prominence in the media. Specialized journalists traced his journey from his glory days in competitions to his near-tragic end on the train tracks, turning him into a symbol of the fight against mistreatment in the equestrian world. Alexander, observing Braveheart in his new home, reflected on how that seemingly simple rescue had triggered such a profound transformation in his life. The horse, now recovered and full of life, attracted the attention of other rescued animals, as if his own story of overcoming inspired them. One afternoon, while overseeing the arrival of more medical equipment for the treatment of the horses, Alexander received an unexpected visit. It was one of the main sponsors of the National Equestrian Circuit, visibly disturbed by the revelations. "What's happening here goes far beyond an isolated case of mistreatment," the man said after requesting confidentiality. "Diego built an empire based on fraud and cruelty. But he didn't act alone. There are powerful people involved, people who won't hesitate to use their influence to cover all this up." The conversation was interrupted by an urgent call from Anna Claire. She had discovered something alarming in the documents: evidence that some inspectors and authorities in the equestrian world had been bribed to ignore previous reports of mistreatment at Horizon stables. "This explains why so many complaints were dismissed without investigation," concluded Anna Claire, her voice trembling with indignation. The entire system was compromised. As night fell over the farm, Alexander gathered his team for a frank conversation. The road ahead would be difficult. They would face resistance, threats, and attempts to discredit their work. But looking at the rescued horses, especially Braveheart, everyone knew there was no turning back. "We're not just fighting for these animals," said Alexander, his voice filled with emotion. "We're fighting to change a system that allowed all of this to happen, and we won't stop until we succeed." Lauren, who had risked her career to help them, added crucial information. "I found out that Diego is trying to transfer a large sum of money to overseas accounts. He's preparing to flee. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit like. Tell us which city you're watching us from, and let's continue." The news that Diego planned to flee the country triggered a series of urgent actions. Alexander immediately shared the information with federal agents, who intensified their surveillance of the businessman. However, the battle was far from over. One morning, as Alexander supervised the veterinarian's work, Anna Claire arrived at the farm with troubling news. Equestrian websites had started publishing articles questioning the legitimacy of the allegations against Horizon stables. Some reports suggested that the rescued horses were already in poor condition before arriving at the stables. "They're trying to manipulate the narrative," explained Anna Claire, showing the publications on her tablet. "Diego is using his media contacts to portray himself as the victim of a conspiracy." Diego's strategy went beyond media manipulation. Horse owners who had recognized their animals during the rescue began receiving tempting offers to change their testimonies. Some, fearing retaliation or enticed by the financial offers, began hesitating to maintain their accusations. Mary Ellen, however, remained steadfast. Her reputation in the equestrian world and her personal history with Braveheart lent credibility to the allegations. She began organizing meetings with other athletes and owners, sharing evidence and encouraging more people to speak out. "We cannot let fear silence us again," she declared during one of these meetings. Every person who remains silent is a victory for those who profit from the suffering of these animals. Dr. Paul contributed with his expertise, preparing detailed reports on the conditions of the rescued horses. His analyses were irrefutable. The animals showed clear signs of prolonged use of banned substances and systematic mistreatment. "The physical evidence doesn't lie," he stated, presenting the test results. "These horses were subjected to a brutal regime of doping and exploitation. Some will have permanent scars." Alexander, on the other hand, was facing a personal battle. His former company, pressured by its association with the scandal through supplying materials to the stables, was trying to distance itself from the case. Executives who once supported him now avoided any contact, fearing they might be implicated in the investigations. Lauren, who continued to monitor the internal movements of the company, brought information about an emergency board meeting. "They're considering suing you, Alexander," she revealed. "They want to claim that you're using insider information to harm the company." The pressure was mounting from all sides, but something unexpected began to happen. Braveheart's story, shared on social media, touched the hearts of the public. Ordinary people, many with no connection to the equestrian world, began to speak out in support of the cause. A group of digital influencers specializing in animal rights visited the farm, documenting the recovery of the rescued horses. The before and after images, especially of Braveheart, sparked a wave of emotion on social media. The hashtag #JusticeForAnimals became a national trending topic. International media also began to show interest in the case. A renowned European newspaper was preparing a special feature on the fraud scheme in Brazilian horse racing, using the Horizon Stables case as the focal point of the investigation. Amid all this turmoil, Alexander found strength in the transformation of the rescued animals. Every small progress, every sign of recovery, was confirmation that they were on the right path. Braveheart, in particular, demonstrated an extraordinary ability to help in the recovery of other traumatized horses. "It's incredible how he manages to calm the others," observed one of the caretakers, watching Braveheart interact with a particularly frightened horse. "It's as if he understands exactly what they've been through." One night, while Alexander was making his final rounds of the farm, he found Anna Claire still working in her makeshift office. She was organizing new evidence that had come in through a network of informants that had formed since the beginning of the case. "We've discovered something important," she said, without taking her eyes off the documents. "Diego isn't acting alone in his escape attempt. There's a coordinated plan to transfer not only money, but also horses to countries without extradition agreements with the United States." The discovery of Diego's international escape plan mobilized an unprecedented operation. Alexander and his team were racing against time, knowing that every minute was precious to prevent more horses from being sent out of the country. Lauren, using her contacts within the company, managed to access encrypted emails that revealed alarming details. "They have a network of fake buyers in 3 different countries," she explained, showing the documents to Alexander and Anna Claire. Each animal would be registered with forged documentation, making it impossible to trace them afterward. The situation grew even more complicated when Mary Ellen received an anonymous call. The voice on the other end offered a significant sum for her to change her testimony about Braveheart. "They're desperate," she said after reporting the bribery attempt. "They know my testimony could destroy the entire facade of legitimacy at Horizon Stables." Alexander decided to use this pressure to his advantage. With Anna Claire's help, he organized an impromptu press conference at his farm. Journalists from across the country were invited to witness the recovery work of the rescued horses and hear the testimonies of those involved. The event began with a tour of the stables, where members of the press could document the transformation of the animals. Dr. Paul presented scientific data on the effects of doping and mistreatment, backing every claim with irrefutable medical evidence. "These horses were subjected to a systematic regime of abuse," explained the veterinarian, showing X-rays and lab tests. "The substances found in their bodies are extremely dangerous, some even banned in international competitions." Mary Ellen shared her personal story, moving those present as she recounted how Braveheart, her former horse, had been taken from her under false pretenses. "He was more than just a competition animal," she said, tears in her eyes. "He was part of our family, and we almost lost him forever because of the greed of unscrupulous people." During the press conference, Lauren received an urgent message on her phone. Diego Martinez's lawyers had filed a lawsuit trying to block the release of the information, claiming a violation of corporate confidentiality. It was yet another desperate attempt to silence the truth. But the most impactful moment was yet to come. Anna Claire had prepared a multimedia presentation detailing the entire structure of the criminal organization. The documents found in the stable's safe, combined with the new evidence collected, painted a frightening picture of systemic corruption. "We're not just talking about animal abuse," she explained, showing charts and spreadsheets. "This is a sophisticated scheme of competition fraud, money laundering, and corruption that has moved millions of dollars in recent years." The presentation included names of competition judges who had been bribed, veterinarians who falsified reports, and businessmen who funded the scheme in exchange for a share of the profits from fraudulent bets. Each accusation was backed by documents, recordings, or bank records. Amid the press conference, Braveheart was brought in for a demonstration. The contrast between his current state and the photos from when he was rescued was shocking. The horse, now healthy and proud, naturally approached the journalists, allowing himself to be photographed and filmed. "Braveheart is not just a survivor," declared Alexander, watching the horse interact gently with those present. "He is living proof that we can change this reality. Every rescued animal represents a victory against a system that profits from suffering." As the press conference unfolded, Lauren noticed suspicious activity in the bank accounts she was monitoring. Large sums of money were beginning to be transferred to different destinations, indicating that Diego and his associates were accelerating their escape plans. "Alexander," she called discreetly, showing the information on her tablet. "We need to act now. They're starting to move the money. If we don't stop them, the entire fortune will disappear into offshore accounts." The race against time to prevent the funds from vanishing turned into a complex and risky operation. Alexander immediately contacted federal authorities, sharing the information uncovered by Lauren about the suspicious financial movements. "We have less than 24 hours, explained Lauren, analyzing the transfer patterns. "They're using a sophisticated system of intermediary accounts to make tracking difficult. Every minute that passes, more money disappears." Anna Claire, who had built an international network of contacts during her years of activism, mobilized animal protection organizations in different countries. The goal was to monitor possible destinations for the horses Diego still had in his possession. "We've received information that specialized transporters are on standby at 3 different airports," she revealed, marking the locations on a digital map. They plan to carry out the transport simultaneously to divide the authorities' attention. Mary Ellen, using her influence in the equestrian world, managed to alert other stable owners about the scheme. Some of them, fearing implication, began cooperating with the investigations, providing new evidence about the extent of Diego's network. "It's not just the betting money," explained one of the collaborators, who chose to remain anonymous. "They've created a complete system of document forgery for horses, fake pedigrees, altered competition results, all to artificially inflate the animal's value." Alexander coordinated the actions from his farm, which had been transformed into an improvised operations center. Journalists continued to arrive, drawn by the revelations from the press conference. The media presence, though complicating logistics, served as additional protection against possible retaliation. Dr. Paul brought new concerns to the group. Some of the recently rescued horses showed signs of having been exposed to substances even more dangerous than those previously identified. They were testing new drug cocktails, he explained, showing the test results. Substances that aren't even detectable in conventional doping tests. Amid the chaos, Braveheart remained a calming presence. The horse, now fully recovered, displayed an extraordinary sensitivity to sensing when other animals were stressed, approaching them gently and comfortingly. "It's amazing how he can calm the other horses," observed one of the caretakers. It's like he knows exactly what they're feeling. The situation took a new turn when Lauren discovered something alarming in the financial documents. "I found records of regular payments to people within the judicial system," she said, her voice trembling. "Diego has judges and prosecutors on his payroll." This revelation explained how the businessman had managed to escape previous investigations. It also meant they needed to act with even more caution, as they couldn't fully rely on the legal system. Alexander gathered his team for an emergency meeting. "We can't depend solely on the authorities," he declared. "We need to ensure that all the evidence comes to light in a way that can't be ignored or covered up." Anna Claire suggested a bold strategy. "Let's do a live broadcast," she proposed. "We'll show all the documents, all the tests, all the testimonies. Once the information is public, it will be impossible to contain." The idea was risky but had potential. With the help of investigative journalists and digital media experts, they began preparing a detailed presentation that would expose the entire scheme clearly and irrefutably. As the preparations unfolded, Lauren continued monitoring the financial movements. "Something strange is happening," she warned, observing unusual patterns in the transfers. "It seems like someone is trying to reverse some of the transactions, as if there's internal conflict within Diego's group." Alexander's farm had turned into an improvised studio in the hours leading up to the live broadcast. State-of-the-art equipment was installed, allowing the truth about Horizon Stables to be revealed to the entire country. Anna Claire, with her communication expertise, coordinated the technical team as they finalized the last details. "We have over 50,000 people already waiting for the broadcast to start," informed one of the technicians, monitoring social media. The news about the revelation had spread quickly, attracting attention not only from the United States audience but also from international equestrian media outlets. Mary Ellen was preparing for her most important moment. She would be the first to speak, sharing her personal story with Braveheart and exposing how Diego's scheme had affected so many lives. "It's no longer just about a horse," she said during rehearsal. "It's about an entire system that needs to change." Dr. Paul organized a detailed presentation on the effects of the substances found in the rescued horses. His reports, supported by international experts who would participate remotely in the broadcast, were devastating. "These practices not only harm the animals," he explained, "they corrupt the very spirit of the sport." Lauren continued monitoring the financial movements when she noticed something even more intriguing. "Alexander, you need to see this," she called, showing her laptop. "Some of the accounts are being blocked internally. It seems there are people within the bank itself helping to prevent the transfers." The broadcast began promptly at 8 p.m. Alexander opened the presentation with a brief account of how he found Braveheart on that stormy night. Her emotional yet precise narrative immediately captured the audience's attention. Views were increasing exponentially every minute. Anna Claire then took over, methodically presenting the evidence they had gathered. Documents, photos, videos, and testimonies were displayed in sequence, building an irrefutable case against Diego and his associates. With each new revelation, social media exploded with reactions of outrage and support. Midway through the broadcast, Braveheart was brought in for a live demonstration of his recovery. The contrast between his current state and the archival footage from his rescue moved the viewers. The horse, as if understanding the importance of the moment, stood majestically before the cameras. It was at this moment that something unexpected happened. One of Horizon Stables' longest-serving employees watching the broadcast decided to break his silence. He joined live via a video call, ready to reveal details that not even Alexander and his team were aware of. "I can't carry this weight any longer," he began, visibly emotional. "What you've uncovered is only part of the story. For years, Diego has maintained secret facilities in different parts of the country, places where problematic horses are hidden until they're discarded." The revelation had an immediate impact. The employee provided addresses and specific details that would allow authorities to locate these facilities. More than that, he revealed the names of other businessmen involved in the scheme, people who until then had seemed untouchable. Lauren, who continued monitoring the reactions, noticed frantic activity in the bank accounts linked to the scheme. "Transfers are being reversed en masse," she reported. Here it seems the banks themselves, fearing implication, are cooperating with the authorities. Mary Ellen received messages from other athletes and owners during the broadcast, all wanting to share their own experiences with Diego's scheme. A network of solidarity began to form, breaking the wall of silence that had protected those responsible for so long. As the broadcast progressed, Alexander realized they were achieving much more than just exposing a criminal scheme. They were catalyzing a fundamental change in the world of American equestrianism. The presence of Braveheart, a living symbol of this transformation, was a constant reminder of what was truly at stake. Anna Claire skillfully coordinated the flow of information, ensuring that each new revelation was properly documented and contextualized. The audience, which had already surpassed the 1 million viewer mark, reacted with a mix of shock and determination to see justice served. The impact of the live broadcast was immediate and overwhelming. As millions of people watched the revelations unfold in real time, a series of events began to take place across different parts of the country. The secret facilities mentioned by the former stable employee were being visited by authorities and activists, confirming every detail of his testimony. Lauren, still connected to her network of informants in the financial sector, received constant updates on Diego's situation. "The accounts are being frozen one after another," she reported, without taking her eyes off her laptop. "His assets are practically frozen." The broadcast entered its second hour, with new testimonies emerging spontaneously. Horse owners, caretakers, veterinarians, and even competition judges began sending messages, videos, and documents, each adding a piece to the puzzle that revealed the true extent of the scheme. Mary Ellen, who had become one of the leading voices of the exposé, received messages of support from athletes around the world. "The international equestrian community is in shock," she said, reading some of the messages during the broadcast. "Delegations from other countries are demanding a full investigation into all competitions involving horses from Horizon stables." Dr. Paul, who continued to coordinate the treatment of the rescued animals, brought even more shocking information. "Some of the horses show signs of experiments with unapproved substances," he revealed, showing recent test results. They were testing experimental drugs on the animals, with no regard for the risks. Amid the revelations, Braveheart remained a constant and significant presence. The horse, who had become a symbol of resistance and hope, drew the attention of the cameras with his noble and recovered posture. His personal story, intertwined with that of so many other animals who had suffered at Diego's hands, touched the hearts of the viewers. Anna Claire was receiving information from her international network of contacts. Animal protection organizations from various countries offered support and resources to help in the recovery of the rescued horses. "This is no longer a local issue," she explained. "It has become a global movement for equestrian reform." The broadcast reached its most dramatic moment when a group of federal investigators who were watching the revelations decided to share information from a parallel investigation that was already underway. The data confirmed everything that was being exposed and added new layers of complexity to the case. "Diego's scheme was just part of a much larger network," explained one of the investigators, participating live anonymously. "We discovered connections to illegal betting houses in various countries, all operating under legitimate fronts." Alexander, observing the unfolding events, realized they were witnessing not just the collapse of an empire built on cruelty and fraud, but the beginning of a profound transformation in the world of equestrian sports. The truth, once exposed, triggered a chain reaction that could not be contained. Lauren received urgent information through her contacts. Diego had tried to leave the country on a private flight, but was stopped by airport authorities. "He's cornered," she announced, a subtle smile of satisfaction on her face. "All escape routes have been blocked." The news of Diego's thwarted escape attempt sparked a new wave of revelations. Employees of Horizon stables, now free from the fear of retaliation, began sharing details about other questionable practices they had witnessed over the years. Mary Ellen, in a particularly emotional moment of the broadcast, approached Braveheart. "This horse," she said, gently stroking his neck, is not just a survivor. He is living proof that we can change things when we refuse to stay silent in the face of cruelty. As the night progressed, the broadcast's audience continued to grow. Hashtags related to the case dominated social media, and news outlets from around the world began echoing the revelations. The empire of lies and cruelty built by Diego was crumbling in real time, broadcast to millions of viewers. 6 months had passed since the historic live broadcast that exposed Diego's empire of cruelty. Alexander's farm, once an improvised refuge for rescued horses, had transformed into an international center of excellence for animal rehabilitation and protection. The place, now known as Braveheart Sanctuary, welcomed visitors and experts from various countries. On a sunny spring morning, Alexander watched Braveheart interacting with a group of children participating in the sanctuary's new educational program. The horse, once traumatized and distrustful, now displayed a natural gentleness with the young visitors, as if it knew its story could inspire future generations to fight against cruelty. "It's incredible how he's become an ambassador for the cause," commented Anna Claire, who had become the sanctuary's director of educational programs. Her experience as an activist was now channeled into raising awareness about animal welfare, especially in the equestrian world. The impact of the case extended far beyond the farm's boundaries. The equestrian world underwent a revolution in the months following the revelations. New regulations were implemented, stricter monitoring systems were established, and a permanent international commission was created to oversee competitions and animal treatment practices. Mary Ellen, who had become one of the leading voices of this transformation, regularly visited the sanctuary to train with Braveheart. The two had rebuilt their bond, but now their partnership had a greater purpose: to demonstrate that the true spirit of equestrianism lies in the respectful connection between horse and rider. "Every time we ride together," she explained during an interview for a documentary about the case, "it's a celebration of what we can achieve when we choose the path of respect and compassion." Dr. Paul, who continued to oversee the animals' well-being at the sanctuary, had developed new treatment protocols for traumatized horses. His methods, based on experiences with the animals rescued from Horizon stables, were being adopted by rehabilitation centers worldwide. Lauren, after the revelations, decided to leave the corporate world. Her skills in finance and investigation were now dedicated to tracking and exposing other cases of animal exploitation. "Sometimes we need to follow the money to find the truth," she said, coordinating a new international network of investigators. As for Diego Martinez, his empire had definitively crumbled. After the failed escape attempt, he faced legal proceedings in multiple jurisdictions. The documents found in his safe had exposed a network of corruption spanning several countries, leading to a series of international investigations. Horizon Stables, once a symbol of prestige and power, was transformed into a recovery center, affiliated with Braveheart Sanctuary. The stables that once housed cruel practices were now spaces of healing and renewal. Every rescued animal that recovered was a small victory against the system Diego had built. Alexander, reflective in his office adorned with photographs documenting the transformation of the sanctuary, received special news that morning. The International Equestrian Federation had decided to create an annual award in honor of Braveheart, recognizing initiatives that promote the well-being of horses and ethical practices in the sport. "It was never just about saving one horse," he said during the award announcement ceremony. "It was about changing a system, about showing that we can do better, that we must do better." The sun began to set over the Braveheart Sanctuary, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. In the pastures, dozens of rescued horses grazed peacefully, their stories of suffering transformed into testimonies of resilience. Braveheart, as always, stood out among them, not just for his majestic posture, but for the aura of serenity he exuded. Alexander, observing the scene from the terrace of his home, felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The decision to buy that farm, which initially seemed like an escape from his previous life, had turned into something much greater. He was no longer a man searching for meaning amidst the emptiness of material success. He was someone who had found his true purpose. Every story deserves to be heard, he reflected, as Braveheart approached the terrace as if aware he was being watched. Every life deserves to be protected. The horse neighed softly, as if in agreement. The sound echoed across the sanctuaries, fields, carrying with it the promise of a better future, where compassion and respect would prevail over cruelty and greed. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit like. Let us know which city you're watching from, and we'll continue.